We are just trying. Oh, and we are on LinkedIn Live as well. So if you're joining from there, welcome to our monthly chat series, What's the Buzz? Very excited to be here and very excited for my guests today. We are going to spend 20 minutes exploring what's happening across the ERP ecosystem with the people who are working on these challenges every day. I am your host, Amy Keenan, founder of the ISV Society. Today, I'm joined by Caroline and Griffin, who is going to chat us with why your ERP can't close your books faster and what AI can do about it. So finance team, obviously they've invested heavily in their ERP systems, yet we're spending too much time chasing payments, reconciling invoices, and trying to get a clearer picture of cash flow. Flywire recently did a survey to 300 finance leaders to better understand those challenges and why they exist and how AI is beginning to help and make the your day-to-day work more efficient. So today we'll dig into that research that they've uncovered, where ERPs shine, where accounts receivable often needs additional support, and what organizations to think about as AI becomes more of a practical part of finance operations. So are you ready?
Ready.
That was a mouthful of me, but anyway, we're going to dive into the questions. So let's start with the research. You surveyed 300 finance leaders. What surprised you the most, and what did you hear consistently across organizations using different ERP systems?
So, hi everybody. I'm Caroline Broms. I run our B2B marketing vertical at Flywire. And as Amy mentioned, we recently produced a survey across 300 finance leaders across different ERP platforms. But I think what stood out wasn't what we expected. I think we thought we'd hear, we need AI, like that's number one. But instead, we heard a lot more around our AR process is broken. We can't scale without hiring more people, and our ERP isn't solving this. So that's what prompted this conversation. And I think what surprised me the most was that more than 60% of finance leaders told us their ERP is only handling part of the AR workflow. So they're stitching together 3 to 5 tools to kind of compensate. And I think that that's the real story. And it's
Mhm.
consistent across Dynamics, NetSuite, Sage, Acumatica. And the problem isn't the ERP brand, it's the category. So ERPs handled transactional accounting beautifully, but they really weren't designed for the orchestration layer of modern AR. And I think for modern ERPs, finance teams are spending, 40 to 60% of their time on exception handling and follow-up and not necessarily strategic work. And I think that's showing up in cash flow predictability and not just efficiency metrics. So what's interesting from a demand signal perspective, 18 months ago, the conversation was optimize what we have. Now it's we need something different. And that's the inflection point that's real.
That's very interesting. Yeah, you would think AI would be the top category, that's for sure, because that's what everybody's talking about all the
Right.
time,
Every day.
every day. Exactly. Okay. Many companies assume their ERP should solve every finance challenge. Where does the ERP typically do a great job, and where do accounts receivable and cash flow processes start to break down?
Yeah, I can take this one. And by way of introduction, my name is Griffin, a extension of our sales team over here at Flywire. And ERPs, end of the day, do a lot of things very well. They're always going to be a necessary function within the finance organization, but their main focus, and to answer the question, what they do really good at is kind of, maintaining the financial data integrity of accounting records, general ledger, reporting, all the important packages that take to close the books and kind of run the business from a financial standpoint. But where they fall short is some of the more day-to-day functions with respect to volume of invoices and customers, such as accounts receivable. So when you're using an ERP and you go to run an AR process, like Caroline mentioned, you're typically downloading an aging report out of the ERP into an Excel type of format, maybe filtering and sorting for who owes us the longest, who has the longest outstanding invoice, who owes us the most cash,
Mhm.
then probably taking that to your email, your Outlook, your Gmail, to start reaching out to customers, maybe checking data in your CRM. So they do a good job of kind of being the source of truth. But as far as automating the invoice to cash process and accelerating cash flow is kind of where that gap lies, with respect to AR and collection. So a lot of the different pieces we'll probably touch on today with respect to automated reminders going out, alerting the team when they need to step in, bridging the gap with their customers by bringing a customer-facing portal where customers can actually view information, download, make payments, reduce that friction between your AR team and the customers is really the goal and kind of where they would fall short in the scheme of this conversation.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that really quickly, I think Griffin hit the nail on the head. It's there's so many different aspects to your ERP, but I think what finance leaders really want is to keep the ERP as the ERP and then
Mhm.
have a layer on top of that that actually lets them manage AR in real time. And I think that that's a really tricky part of the conversation, but it's also such a critical part of the conversation.
Mhm. Definitely. All right, we're bringing up AI because it's everywhere right now. But we seem to think finance teams are looking for practical value. Where are you seeing AI making the biggest difference in accounts receivable today?
Yeah, that's another good question. I think we're kind of seeing a shift from AI traditionally being like a thought of as like an analytics tool, to actually becoming more of an execution engine. And end of the day, like I think finance teams are kind of dashboarded out. There's a dashboard for everything. They're kind of looking for something from an AI standpoint that's actually going to move the needle and collect cash faster. And that's kind of the exact approach we've taken at Flywire to bringing AI to the table. We don't want users to have to be like an expert in writing prompts in order to get anything valuable from it. We kind of want to meet them where they are. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about this, but actually prioritizing collection. So building AI agents that only thing they care about and know how to do is optimize your company's cash flow, help you identify customers, invoices that need your attention, while you can have confidence to know that nothing is going to slip through the cracks, but also me and my team are going to be alerted when things come in through the process that need our attention. So we can focus our attention and day-to-day efforts elsewhere and not need to be so bogged down with the manual collections that a lot of companies we talk to are dealing with today. So I think it's kind of in summary that move from more analytics focus to actually execution and providing real value that's going to move the needle and help accelerate cash flow and get your invoices paid much faster and easier.
Yeah, and I think that that's so important. And I also think as a company, it's really important to not just say, oh, well, we're talking about AI and like we're using AI, but how are you actually incorporating AI into your product and into your software? I think that that's what separates out great solutions. Um,
Mhm.
because, I talked about this with Monica last week on the Marketing Voices podcast, but AI can be scary and it's okay to admit that, but AI can be very helpful. So you have to kind of bridge that gap and figure out, okay, how are we going to support these customers of ours while incorporating AI into a solution that actually makes their life more efficient and effective and isn't there to just, replace somebody. It's there to make their job more effective and to make their company more successful at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So that kind of leads into our next question. You described this AI augmented AR rather than just AI replacing people. What does that actually look like in day-to-day work for someone on a finance team?
Yeah. It's I'll play off what I mentioned earlier in terms of like meeting them where they are, being the finance team. So a couple in practice examples of this with respect to accounts receivable and collections would be a couple actions that teams are loving that our AI is performing is where we'll go ahead and take a look at your customer base across the board, understand their historical payment patterns, as collection is not a one size fits all approach. You're going to have your group of customers that traditionally don't pay you very well. You're going to have your group of customers that are more strategic in nature, very good relationship, typically pay on time. So our AI is going to actually do that work for you because if you ask a lot of AR teams now to group their customers into risk buckets or how they pay, it's going to be just kind of a gut feeling. There's not, unless you have all that data available, which is very tough, kind of like that DSO at the customer level. So what our AI will do is take a look at the historical payment patterns, group your customers into risk buckets for you, and then build tailored AR workflows, which we think of as a series of automated events with respect to automated emails, automated escalations, telling your team when and who to call. Our AI will basically go ahead and make those workflows for the group of customers in the different risk buckets based off data and results that we've seen that drive the needle for similarly profiled customers. And obviously, you can then go make tweaks and changes to the email templates the system's created, but just that administrative burden of
Mm-hmm.
and kind of that bridge you have to cross in your head of bringing in an AR system. We want to take a lot of that work off the plate for you, help you analyze your customers, and tell you what the recommended approach should be to efficiently drive collections and accelerate cash flows. That's the name of the game. That's why you'd bring in an AR system to drop DSO, see the cash come in faster. We want to help you optimize that through AI. And then as the system gets to know your customers, making recommendations like, hey, this customer traditionally has been getting, a medium touch workflow, meaning we've maybe sent them 4 or 5 reminders throughout the process, but they're starting to pay you worse. We recommend moving them to this workflow, which is a bit more proactive, getting in front of the invoice before the due date, flushing out those issues, and maybe more calls going to the customer. So different things like that, where we're not just asking a AI solution to tell me what's happening here. We're going to bring that to you before it ever becomes a problem and actually take actions such as building out the workflows and many different examples. But that's kind of one that when you asked that question, my mind went to right away.
Yeah, and I think we can all agree getting paid is very hard, but it's also what everybody wants, right? Like everybody wants to get their
Yes.
money at the end of the day. So what we look to do and what we are looking to achieve with our AI built into our software is, making cash flow more predictable so that the team is actually, doing customer work instead of data work. And I think the most important thing that not just Flywire, but any company on the market that has a back office solution, they should be focusing on removing the noise. So human
Mhm.
expertise is what actually matters. And I think when you do achieve that, that just streamlines everything and it's going to make all of us more efficient across the board. And I think that's the hope for
Mhm.
Flywire, but I think it's also critical everyone else is thinking in the same mindset, really.
And I'm sure nobody raises their hand and says, I love sending out invoice reminders, or I love reminding them they're overdue. I know I don't like doing that. So if it can be automated or if you can leverage AI to help with that, I think that's a huge lifesaver.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm guessing Griffin doesn't hear very often, like, oh, yeah, I love chasing my customers. That's my
No,
favorite thing.
no, it's rare. And yeah, nothing, there's no bigger asset to a company than the money that you're owed. So the importance of optimizing this process and making sure you're in a good spot, not just today, but as companies grow, from a scaling standpoint, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had where sales has outpaced the back office, and now you're at this hole that makes it much harder to dig out of as opposed to getting in front of it, putting the scalability in place. So as that invoice volume grows, things aren't slipping through the cracks. We don't need an army of people out there collecting. So you nailed it.
Okay, so for organizations using ERP systems like Microsoft Dynamics, NetSuite, Sage, Acumatica, and others, what should they look for when evaluating an AR solution to work alongside that ERP?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think first and foremost, where my head went right away is on the integration side. The integration should be seamless and play really well with the ERP, not disruptive. Ideally, you should have bi-directional
Mhm.
syncing, which means information goes not only from ERP to AR system, but AR system to ERP. Um, you don't want to spend too much time kind of plugging the holes. You want the AR solution you're bringing on to be doing that for you. And I think many organizations think of AR automation like just as automated reminder emails. But it's really so much more than that. It's really truly bringing a system of record for AR with respect to audit trails, um, basically a CRM for everything regarding the customers to get insights from, automate, understand what's happened on any given account, and then improve the customer experience, really bridge the gap between your AR team and your customers through a potentially a branded customer portal where when a customer can't really claim they lost an invoice, misplaced an invoice, send me a copy of the statement, there's a link that's being embedded in these emails going out that gives them everything they might need. Um, Not only when the invoice is due or after, but it's all about getting in front of that, such as being able to touch an invoice 10 days before the due date, whether it's automated or not, saying, hey, here's a copy of your invoice. It's due in 10 days. Let us know if you have any questions. A lot of times teams will be getting late payments because they don't have the bandwidth to touch that invoice until it's way already past due. So being able to get in front of any potential issues that are going to delay the payment as early on as possible is a combination of everything an AR system brings with a tight integration within the ERP, not just blasting emails, which I think AR automation can kind of get thought of sometimes. And then when a payment's made through the portal as well, being able to go push that payment back, apply the cash, reconcile with the ERP is just as important as getting the information from it. So I think integration should be on the forefront and then expanding the horizon of what's this AR system actually going to do for me and not just kind of shoebox it into sending emails. It's kind of the full customer experience improvement, doing more with your current team, scalability that I had referenced earlier. That kind of entire invoice to cash lifecycle should be in consideration on top of the integration itself.
Yeah, and I think these are conversations, Griffin's having every single day, and we have all the time when we go to conferences, right? It's like what are like, and which is the best place, obviously, to, meet with people and have conversations and really sit down and talk about what the challenges are that they're facing. But I think that this is what makes the research so interesting for me, is that because we weren't hearing finance leaders were asking for shiny AI features, it was more, okay, like, will this integrate without breaking the ERP? Can it read from my ERP without being forced to write to it? And organizations that choose rip and replace solutions tend to have 3 times longer implementation and 2 times higher user adoption friction. So I think that that's really interesting for the research to back up. And then I think secondly, um, when we do talk about the AI side of the research, is the AI actually trained on your domain, and not just generic AI? So AR specific intelligence that can explain its recommendations, and does it respect the ERP as the source of truth? Financial reporting should flow from the ERP. So it's a layer, not a replacement. So I think the best outcomes that we see are from minimal changes to what works and enhancements of what doesn't. And I think that that was really eye-opening, from the research, and then how we actually take that practically and apply it to the conversations we have.
Yeah. And I loved your CRM analogy there, Griffin. It's a great way to think of it, right?
Yeah, it really is. Like if a customer calls today to discuss an invoice and you want to take a note of that, like where are you doing that everyone else that might touch that customer can see exactly when and where that happened alongside everything else that we're automating, surfacing insights, the reporting, bridging the gap with the customer. It really, what I mentioned earlier, if you don't have a dedicated system, you're using 3 or 4 different ones that none of them were designed for that purpose.
Yeah. Okay, last but not least, for those that are joining us today from Zoom or LinkedIn Live, what's one action item you'd like to walk away with? What's one question they should ask themselves or their finance team about their invoice to cash process?
Yeah, if I'm putting myself in their shoes, I'd probably ask myself, if we as a finance org mapped out like every step from creating an invoice to the cash hitting our bank account, how many of those are manual? Um, I think the answer would probably be surprising for most organizations with being more than one or two. And then that next question kind of naturally becomes, okay, if we automate these, what will that do for our team? Being able to free up time, get them maybe with higher priority activities rather than just sending emails about past due invoices. Finding out which invoices to prioritize is also a huge time suck throughout the day. So not only identifying where it is manual, but if this wasn't manual, what could we be doing better as a team, getting more out of our current existing team? And then also kind of challenging what I had mentioned a couple questions ago, like if we anticipate to grow 20-30%, these 500 invoices a month become 750, 1,000 invoices a month, like do we have the infrastructure for that scale? Are we going to need to bring in a lot more people? If there's any turnover on our team, the documentation of a refined process and what's happened within these customers and these accounts, how is that knowledge transfer going to work? All of those kind of soft ROI points that you don't really think about from an AR system, as aside from DSO and accelerating cash flow, kind of the ones that we're used to from a hard dollar standpoint. All of those really compound and can help bridge the gap and take that customer experience to the next layer. I think in today's environment, just kind of from 2020 till today, a lot of companies have the mindset of like, hey, retention, customer retention is the new growth. Like, we want to do everything we can to make sure our customer base is as happy as possible. And when like your AR process is an extension of your customer service, it's directly the bridge between your team and the customer with respect to kind of the post delivery, so or post service being delivered. So I think a combination of those questions is a really good place to start and understand, is there room for improvement? What could this system look like? What does it even do? Like, I've got this unique scenario in my head and want to know what AR automation would do for that. Like, we're happy to talk about the most niche one-off use cases possible, but I think a combination of those questions should put a light bulb in folks' head and see if there's a area for improvement, especially as you continue to grow.
Yeah, love that.
I was just going to say, I mean, Griffin took the words out of my mouth, so good teamwork. But I think just, coming off that is how can you make your ERP work better for you? Like at the end of the day, what are you doing that's just going to improve your day to day? And I think we've been through many iterations of that. We've been through digital transformations in the past. We're doing it again. So how are we going to just modernize everything and make ourselves more efficient without putting ourselves in a place where we're, just ripping out things and replacing things? I don't think that's the solution. So, finding that right solution that fits into what you've already built and just makes your day-to-day a lot more organized and efficient. And I think a lot of companies are there. I think a lot of them are working towards it, but it's exciting. It's scary and it's exciting. But
Yep.
I think we're looking forward to the rest of the year with AI and everything happening.
100%. And the ERP is such a big investment and such a big powerhouse within the finance org. Like, you want to make sure you're getting the most out of that investment. And if there's a seamless pre-built API connector that could leverage an AR automation and get up and running in a couple weeks, and it can make this big of an impact on our cash flow and our customer experience. Like, I think not the decision to not even explore what that impact could be could put some companies behind the eight ball, which they'll eventually have to dig out of, and it's going to be much harder the longer you wait.
Yeah. I think, obviously AR can become such a manual process. So really taking a step back and saying, where are my gaps or where are my holes? What am I doing manually that I could automate and make my life easier? So really thinking about that. So I really enjoyed our conversation today.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was great to chat with you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here and joining us for What's the Buzz. It is always the second Tuesday of every month at 4 p.m. Eastern on Zoom and LinkedIn Live. So make sure you also follow Caroline or Griffin on LinkedIn, visit their website at Flywire and learn more about them and their AR solution. And of course, you can also reach out to me as well. So thank you all for joining this month. We truly do appreciate it. Have a great day.